How was Emily versus Paris?
Emily in Paris.
Oh, Emily v. Paris.
It was bad, but I couldn't stop watching it.
Would I like it?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
She goes to Paris, right?
Yeah, but she's like a marketing executive in Chicago, and she, at the last minute, Kate Walsh finds out she's pregnant. She's in 2 episodes. It is nothing. She finds out she's pregnant, and she can't.
Does she dress in Rococo?
No.
And no.
She does not. So she finds out she's pregnant, and they decide she can't go, so she has to send Emily to Paris in her stead, basically.
Mm-hmm. Who's Emily?
Lily Collins.
Oh.
Yeah. And so then she basically is supposed to be helping this small Parisian marketing company get an American perspective, because the Chicago company has just acquired them as like a European presence or whatever. And she can't speak French, which is played for comedy and embarrassment.
Hilarity ensues.
Yeah. And her new boss is terrible. They all call her the hick in French and stuff. It's like, but it's all like, aren't French people hilarious and mean? And then she is drowning in a sea of dicks. Every man she encounters is like, would you like to come back to my place so I can make sweet love to you? Constantly. She has a vibrator that is older than the sun, and she takes out the power of an entire city block with it because she doesn't have an adapter.
Okay. I was going to be like, how many uncut dicks are in it?
0. There is no nudity.
Next. Hello, everybody. I am... Oh!
What?
I thought I had my wig box in the closet over there. And I was very excited to come over here in an Effie Trinket wig.
Ah, okay. All right. I was like, I don't recall you having an Angelica Houston style wig.
I thought I had 2. I thought I had a blonde one and a red one. And we were going to smash cut.
Were we? Okay. I love it when you do bits and you don't tell me.
I just thought of it. If this was preemptive, then I would have it. I would be wearing it right now.
That's fair.
So.
You're already so hot, though. Feels like it would be a bad idea.
I couldn't have stayed on for long, and then I could explain why my hair is bad.
So
under the wig.
This is all for that.
This is all for vanity's sake. Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristin.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice-weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. On today's episode, it's going to be good. I'm sad because we don't have the wigs, but it'll be worth it. On today's episode, we are going to talk about both the 1990 and 2020 movie remake of the Roald Dahl book,
Enola Holmes.
The Witches.
From the incredible imagination of Jim Henson and director Nicholas Roeg comes a fascinating new fantasy adventure, The Witches. For when a little boy accidentally stumbles into their secret world, he finds they've got a lot more power than he ever imagined.
Grandma, it's me, Luke. Luke. They turned me into a mouse. Oh, my. It was the Grand High Witch.
Join Luke on his remarkable journey.
Bye.
Now, the witches are on his tail.
Whoa.
And he must scurry around their evil plots.
Ow.
Squeak past every danger.
Ow. Oh,
Finally setting the trap
no. Woof.
that will save the world from the witches.
You are in for a treat.
We must stop them.
This one was a doozy.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
So I remember hating this movie as a child. Like, not even because it is scary, because it is scary, but also because it's disgusting. It is truly horrifying to look at. It's just awful. I don't like it. Still, as an adult, I straight up did not have a good time.
Okay. I kind of loved it.
I figured.
Did you really? Why?
Angelica Houston?
I didn't enjoy any aspect of it. And I did text you halfway through where I was like, this is the longest hour and a half of my life. But it's so terrible. Like, it's so horrible.
Yeah.
That I was kind of marveled by it.
Okay, fair. So the thing for me about movies like this is that it hurts my feelings when the creator of the IP also doesn't like it. And he didn't really like it because it's mean. It's too mean. It's meaner than the book.
Okay, because it's so mean.
It's so mean. He said it's meaner than the book, and he really didn't care for the actual moments of terror. Like actual terror.
You mean the terrifying ones?
He went so far as to threaten to have his name removed until he got like a letter from Jim Henson where he was like, please don't. And so he was like, fine. But I just like, it hurts my feelings when things like that happen. Like, because I feel bad for the creator.
The movie is famous for being terrifying. I can say with full confidence that I have never seen this movie before, because if I had, I would have white hair right now. Like,
if you had seen it as a child,
I would have developed a stutter. There's something like a complete neurological breakdown.
I definitely saw it as a child.
I think maybe, as I've mentioned several times, maybe the like movie magic or montage or stuff. Because to be quite honest, I found the plot to be very disappointing. Like, I was like,
well, it's very thin, and it's like,
but it's so weird because it's like,
it's incomprehensible
because I don't understand what their goal is.
To just get rid of all of the children.
But witches.
No, I know.
Okay.
Because the thing is,
witches eat children.
I was gonna say that's the thing that like annoyed me the most, is that they're not even eating them, and I'm like, if you turn them into mice, there's even less to eat. Like, what are you doing with these children? Why are you? And also, why mice? Then you're just gonna have a
vermin.
England overrun with mice.
Do you want Pied Pipers? Because that's how you get Pied Pipers. Because why do they smell? Like, you would think they would be, I don't know. The whole thing was bass backwards. I do like that it was its own world.
Sure.
Its own thing. And
Roald Dahl is good at that. But I'm like really
swung for the fences.
That's the other things I'm really picky with my Roald Dahl. Like, I like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I like Matilda, and I like the BFG, and that's about the end of it. The rest of it is like so much.
And I kind of admired that the purpose of this endeavor is to scare children. Yeah. There's something sort of old school about that. That I think, I think there's a certain kind of child that would enjoy this. I was not one of them. But there was something just so old world, like quaint, like about this little boy and his grandmother telling him scary stories and stuff. But I do like the mythology that it established. But
that's the scariest part. The story that grandma tells about the little girl trapped in the painting until she becomes an old woman, and then she just disappears from the painting.
And they never explained that. I kept waiting for them to explain that because there were other.
There's a little boy later in the painting.
They never fully.
Awful.
Because are they watching you back? Like, is there a painting in there?
That's worse.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really odd. And I prefer vast fantasy. And this was so witches are real, but they're all this one terrible thing. And it's like, I would rather this be like a type of witch.
Sure. But this is apparently every witch.
Well, until the end where they establish, but grandma drops it like it's like, I don't know. She's just like, well, if a white witch came by, and I was like, we could have used that information eons ago.
In the beginning.
Yeah, because there could have been a different way out of this. Yeah. I don't know. That part of it was very odd. And I did find the actual plot, like, just like, because they're visiting grandma in Germany, and then his parents go to, I don't know, a Peter Pan party at the bank and then die somehow.
Yeah.
We don't know how.
Yeah.
And
But
then
all
grandma,
that's left is her shawl perfectly intact.
and then grandma takes him to England, which apparently he's American, but grandma's like, oh, we're going to stop over in England for a while, where she gets diabetes.
They keep saying we need to go back to England. So it makes me think that they must live in England.
Okay.
But I don't, but you're right. That kid is American.
Yeah. And so then she gets diabetes, and the doctor was like, you need beach time.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know what? Fair. I'm not going to argue the medicinal healing powers of the ocean.
But that was also a very old world thing, too, where it sort of was like, you've got, like a Victorian novel or something. It was like, you've got the vapors. You've got to go to Bath to, like, take in the air. And it's just like, I mean, okay, I guess. I don't know how that's going to help for sugar in my blood, but...
Well, and I couldn't comprehend, was the hotel nice or not? Because... both. We were getting mixed messages all over this movie.
On the one hand, it's very well appointed and the food looks great. On the other hand, Rowan Atkinson is the manager.
Well, but I don't know, Charlie. What's his name? The mouse boy.
Oh, Bruno.
No, not Bruno Jenkins.
Oh, the actual?
Yeah.
I don't know, actually.
Jake. Jack. Charlie.
Luke.
Matilda.
Luke.
So Luke is like, whoa, at this like hotel. And so they're talking about like it's like the most luxurious thing. And also, I mean, the witches are having this like picnic there.
Global banquet.
Banquet there. But then they're talking about
Angelica Houston doesn't have picnics.
But then she comes in and she's just like horrible from the start. Mm. She's not doing really well, I can't say she's not doing anything. She was doing plenty.
She's also got this like horrible accent.
The whole thing was weirdly, it sounded dubbed. The entire thing
sound dubbed, but it also was like three things at once. It sort of was like Robert Downey Jr. in Dr. Dolittle, because it was like he was supposed to be like a citizen of the world, and I was like, you sound like a lunatic.
And she's just terrible. She's just like functioning at like an 8.5 the entire movie, which again, you kind of have to admire something that just does what it's trying to do with no pretense.
No pretense. My favorite part was when she was talking to Fleabag's dad, Mr. Jenkins, and he was talking at her, and she just kept having this look on her face. She just was like... like the whole time, just like glancing around and like, I do love Angelica Houston.
You gotta love the reveal, her coming in with what you think is a cape, but it's the dress.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So they have this plan to rid England of children by turning them into mice, with no further plan, though.
No.
What they're going to do with these mice. And then they turn fucking Bruno Jenkins. I literally was like, Bruno Jenkins coming in hot, because he like
super hot. He just was like, I like it when the buns have raisins on the outside. The cucumber sandwiches are good too, except for when they use margarine instead of butter, and blah 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 blah.
I like raisins a lot, but what kind of lunatic eats raisins off of like muffins and then puts it like picking? It was insane. It was insanity.
It's bad. I know you've never seen You've Got Mail, but there's like a visual gag where they're at a party together, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, and there's like a hors d'oeuvre out that's like garnished with caviar around the edge, and he just starts scooping the caviar off, and she's like, what are you doing? That caviar is a garnish. And he just keeps scooping it, and then she starts scooping it off his plate back onto the thing. It's very funny. Similar energy, I guess.
But yeah, the witches... terrible, just truly awful.
They're also they're not as glamorous as I wanted. Like, with the exception of Angelica Houston, they're all wearing like Barbara Bush pantsuits.
Yeah,
or Nancy Reagan.
They themselves, because I think in the remake they're gonna be, well, again, I don't know. I've seen one trailer once, so I don't know, but yeah, they were not glamorous enough. I am all set, like all good on like scalp
face
lesions
removal,
and the teeth were so terrible. I do love that like halfway through they stopped hiring women and it was just men in dresses. I kind of thought that was an interesting thing to do. They turn the boys into mice and chase them, and then an entire act, like an entire like 30 minutes of the movie
is like a heist movie. It's like a straight up heist movie. And I was like, what's happening?
With these jarring puppet mice.
Yeah.
Talk about Uncanny Valley.
I don't like
because it was a little it was too real. I couldn't place what I was looking at.
Okay.
And
because it was like too real to be fake, but too fake to be real. Yeah, it was a very Uncanny Valley kind of thing. Every time they like did a close up on when they were supposed to be like talking or whatever, I was like, ugh! But
there was something about it that was like,
well, it's like almost charming because you know that it's Jim Henson, and you're like, oh, but they're Muppets. It's like fine, and then you're like, no, it's not fine. It's not fine at all.
It was just so weird, and I've never like. I mean, I understand the issue with mice and rats, more so rats, but it's like. These people would be like confronted with a little white mouse and they were just like, ah! like, I mean, you would have thought that they just walked in on like Medusa, like waxing or something.
Sure. Well, his mother, Bruno's mother specifically, because Grandma handles it like a champ. Grandma's like, oh, you must be Luke.
Has seen some shit.
Grandma
they also don't explain the finger. I just had to assume it was because Luke gets his tail chopped.
Yeah.
With like a butcher knife. There's blood. I was like, oh my God. But I could only assume that happened to Grandma and that's why she was missing the finger.
Well, I don't know. They kept on saying that the formula was new. The like mouse formula was new. So I sort of felt like she got cornered by a witch and they cut her finger or bit her finger off or something.
And then just ran away.
Well, she could have gotten away.
Because then why bring that whole tail chopping?
I don't know.
Just another. There's been a weird trend in. We started off doing witches movies, but then it turned into like weird body horror by the end. There was like a lot of just like awful because the Bruno transforming into the mouse.
Yeah,
was shocking.
Well, and even
like
Luke,
horrifying.
Even Luke turning back into a boy at the end, I was like, this is uncomfortable. I'm not a fan.
The naked child
it's
in
not
his
good.
grandmother's bedroom.
It's
like,
not good. It's not good.
I'm not the kind of person that's precious about that kind of stuff, but it was odd.
You could tell this movie was made in 1990 in that moment because I was like, there's just no qualms about
like
this.
September of 1990 and not a month sooner or later.
It was just the thing is I like that kid.
It was a McDLT sitting on the.
Yeah, God. I've seen that kid in other stuff. I like him. He's in one of my favorite movies called Parenthood with Steve Martin. But I also couldn't handle him in this movie because it was just Grandma. I just was like, shut up, kid. And
they had that weird thing that movies from like the 70s and 80s have where it's like every shot is just a half a second. It starts too soon and ends too late. Where he'll be like, Grandma. And she'll be like, what? And it's just like, what is the dramatic pause for? Like,
what? That happened in something else.
The Shining was with.
That's right, with Shelley Long, because you were like, what the fuck is happening? Is she having a psychotic break at the table at the beginning of the movie?
Well, because every time he would talk to her and she would be like, huh?
I think you're right, though, that grandma's seen some stuff, so she's always just in there ruminating.
Well, because then you're like, well, so did Grandma kill the parents? Like, the whole thing, it was so strange.
Yeah, it's very
and I love when all the witches are chasing after Luke when he, like, escapes. And broad daylight, middle of the day at this packed hotel. And Angelica Houston takes, like a side quest. She just, takes a little break and decides to go, like, kill a baby. And this scene goes on. It goes on for so long.
Too long. Because the other thing, too, is there's like a lady in red who's just like standing there cackling. And then as Luke is walking back up to the hotel, you can see her in the distance just walking away, just meandering away. And I'm like, are they not still trying to catch this child? Like, what's happening? To go back to the thing you said about all the shots are like 1 second too long, it does really feel like every scene in a way that is not necessary anymore as like sophisticated modern audiences for some reason. Although 1990 really isn't that long ago, but it does feel like they were like establishing shot. Like close-up establishing shot. And they were like, okay, now we're in the meat of the scene. And it's like, why?
Well, it's like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm so confused because it was like, why was Rowan Atkinson banging the one maid? Because
no idea.
It doesn't play in. And then
I guess only so that at the end we can see that she's grown fur from putting the serum on herself.
Oh, I forgot. Did she put it on like it was perfume?
Like perfume.
Oh, okay.
Which does also imply that it smells good enough for someone to mistake it for perfume. What the fuck?
I didn't connect those two because we didn't see her later turn into a mouse. So I was like, why?
She doesn't turn in because she didn't drink it. She like applied it topically. So.
No, I understand. But what does that scene? What is the importance of that scene? We already know it would do that because we watched it do it to both boys.
That's the thing. I don't think it is, except for to give Rowan Atkinson like one more thing to do. I don't know. I thought that scene was bizarre too. I was like, oh, she's gonna have fur on her, and he went in to kiss her neck, and he was like, ooh. I don't know.
It's so weird. And just like this has been a theme, and I mean it's a frequent phenomenon for when you watch something that you've known of. For like, it's like kind of legendary.
Sure.
And then you go back and watch it and you're kind of like, this is it. But there is a big part of me that I'm like, this is it? Like, this is what we're doing?
Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing is like, I knew I didn't like it. And I knew I wasn't going to like it now.
I believed I wasn't going to, but I was excited at the idea of finally like getting it. And I'm going to go back to my initial thing. On some level, part of me thought this was brilliant. That they just were like, whether you like it or not, we're gonna do this.
We're gonna do this movie and make you watch it.
And people are gonna be involved. Like, I feel like there was still a few more things I wanted to say. Well, I talked about the White Witch. I don't know why the one sidekick just decided to be good at the end. I appreciated the notion.
Yeah. It was weird though.
Is that something that would be fleshed out more in the book? What kind of book is it? Is it like a novel or like a picture book?
No, it's like a novel. He wrote but I mean, it's like a children's novel, but he wrote books. Yeah. Like, I mean, Matilda is like probably, I don't think it's even 200 pages long.
Bizarre. And then there's the point where, because literally, like, Soul Survivors, I'm like, we got a minute and a half left in this movie, and I don't see how we're gonna. I was like, oh, so he's just a mouse, and I love that he's made his like total peace with this.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is I had forgotten how long they were mice. They are mice for like 75% of this movie, and then it got
not that long, but yeah.
Well, it got to the end.
Felt like it
when he was in the little dollhouse and everything. And I was like, oh,
you mean the 1989 Ghostbusters compound playhouse?
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah. I had it. It was sending me. So go ahead.
I just was like, oh, he just like straight up ends this movie as mouse. What the hell? I did not remember that at all. And then you were right. It was like 90 seconds from the end. And I was like, okay, well, he's just a mouse. And then the lady showed up outside and I was like, oh, okay.
I like that she also, even though she's like a good witch or a white witch or whatever, she still was like, she had the like wherewithal to be scary about it.
Yeah.
Like she was like, like it was wild.
Yeah. It was a wild ride.
I don't know what to tell you to do with this. It is currently, as of this recording, on Netflix.
Yep.
I think it's something that needs to be seen to be believed.
I think it's also probably going to be interesting to compare it with the new one.
Yeah. I don't see any reality where the new one can be A, good, and B, hold a candle to this. Like, what are they going to do? It's
going to be a lot prettier.
Maybe.
I mean, all the clothes and stuff.
Sure.
It's going to be a lot more glamorous, I think. But I don't think they're going to be dressed like Nancy Reagan. The height of fashion.
There's so many, like, there's a scene where one of the witches turns into, because they're everywhere. Grandmother's right. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And she turns into a mouse and she comes running out to like warn the Grand High Witch or whatever. And then she just steps on her and there's just splatter. And I was like, like it was,
I remember that part was viscerally.
Was it?
I like remember that.
Well, and then they're all drinking crest soup, and fucking Bruno Jenkins stood no chance with those parents of his.
No.
So yeah, so then they're all eating the soup, and they all are turning into mice before everybody's very eyes, but people still aren't comprehending the situation, and they're just freaking out over the mice. And it's like, I would be more concerned about the transmorphication that was going on without explanation. Like, I don't know. It was wild. I don't have kids. I know very little about kids, but if you have a kid that even remotely likes having the bejesus scared out of them,
yeah, I would
plop this one on.
I mean, for me, we are the exact generation for this movie. This was like supposed to be our thing. I would just more recommend letting this movie
just die.
Go quietly into the night. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. Not a vibe.
We haven't kept up the whatever his name was from Rise of Skywalker with the no thank you.
Yeah.
So, well, with that, we're gonna do it all again.
We're gonna watch the new one. I can't wait for it to be 2.5 hours long. Because this was like a tight 90 minutes, which I appreciated. So it is gonna be long.
There's gonna be so much zany mousetrap like CGI bullshit. Ugh.
I have a feeling it's actually gonna take itself a little too seriously for that.
I made us do this too.
You did. This is on you. We can still do the Love Witch, but then we've wasted an afternoon.
Witches. They're real. And they hate children.
Welcome.
What would you do if there were mice running all around this hotel?
I would call the exterminator.
You see, girls? He would exterminate those brats.
Rats. We would exterminate the rats.
I feared this was happening.
Then here, that means a test is coming.
Ladies, I have a plan. Sandra will transform a child into a mouse.
Whoa! Why are we mouses? Mice? Whatever! Grandma, it's me!
Is that you, boy? We'll never let you get away with your filthy, evil plot.
Who's gonna stop me?
Doesn't matter who you are or what you look like, so long as somebody loves you.
You wouldn't happen to be carrying around a mouse on your person, now would you?
A mouse?
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth would I be carrying around a mouse?
When Dan posted that video of a lion, it was like just like chilling, literally on like a peak. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I love this picture of you. And I was just like, I have never been so flattered.
That's the nicest compliment.
I was like, I have never been so, as a proud Lannister.
One time in my life, and I was like 14, someone told me I looked like Kate Winslet, and I was like, I will never, ever let go of this, even though I don't agree. What are you doing? Oh, God damn it. It's gonna be so hot. My hair's not even up. It's so long.
We're not keeping them on.
I'm not even putting my other hair in it. It's just how it is.
We need gloves.
Oh, we do need gloves.
Do you have gloves?
I don't have any gloves. I have like mittens somewhere,
okay, but
I don't know where. You look ridiculous. I love it. Should I can at least pull this.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Horrible.
And they're back.
I can't.
With the 2020, what
are we doing?
The Witches. She just.
It was okay. We gotta get into it. It's awful. I don't know what this even looks like. You look kind of funny. I like what's going on over there. I'm not sure the same is happening. How old is this one?
It's very old. Rachel wore that when she was 18.
Oh God. Yeah. All right.
You can. We can take that off.
Okay. That was fun. So. Here, I'll just.
Oh yeah, that's even better.
I forgot what a good job you did on the Effie trinket wig.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's very good.
So. And we're back. So we watched the 2020 The Witches remake by
Bobby Z.
Bobby Z.
Robert Zemeckis.
I kind of loved it.
Oh, man.
You didn't?
No.
Really? Why?
It was so much. But, like, to me, it made me have a new appreciation for the old one.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't really nothing about it. It was prettier.
It was so much prettier. We have gotten so sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the I don't know what it is about some of like the 70s and the 80s and 90s where it's like you can tell they tried to give Angelica Houston a pretty dress, but for the most part it's like high school theater. Like they just like went into the costume trunk and threw clothes on people. Which is
funny because I know that there are movies from that time that are beautiful and glamorous. Like, I mean, Cruella de Vil.
Yeah, but it's like
amazing.
But it's like they're like a handful of movies where that is very specific to the plot.
Sure.
But it's like nowadays, I mean, even like our shitty remakes and stuff, they usually tend to at least be designed.
Yeah.
Like they had a purpose. I loved how the witches moved in sync.
Yes. Okay.
So
there are things that I did prefer about this, obviously. The glamour of it. I mean, I love Angelica Houston, but Anne Hathaway was like a nice change of pace, although she was 2'11".
It was okay. We're already off on so many different. I'm going to shock you. I thought she was terrible. And
I mostly agree.
Well, because people are talking about how good she is. And I'm like, well, she was screaming.
Yeah, it's too much.
It wasn't acting. She was shouting. And
she's so good.
And she was beautiful.
I know. And the thing is like, okay, do I think she deserves her Oscar for Les Mis? Absolutely not. Do I think she deserves an Oscar? 100%. Okay. I think she's so talented and funny and an interesting performer. But like, this was none of those things. It was literally like Robert Zemeckis was like, just shout all of your lines in again, an indecipherable accent that means nothing.
They did. I can't remember in the first one. They did at least say she was like from Norway. But
she did not sound like
she was doing full blown Angelina Jolie from Alexander.
Yes. Okay.
Where it was like Slavic, but like Russian and then a slight British.
It's like too many things. It spans from like the coast of Wales all the way to the coast of China. And it's just like, you can't have all of those things at once.
It was, I just like, speaking of like screaming and funny accents, I would have preferred to see more of like a Minnie Driver type in the,
like Minnie Driver from Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, okay. I love Anne Hathaway, but I was watching a theater girl act.
Oh my God.
Movie. It was like watching good community theater.
Well, no, what it was like watching Vanessa Bayer's theater camp skit persona.
So, okay. So I was actually straight loving this until the witches showed up.
Oh.
I think that, and I liked elements of it a lot, but I think that they fixed so many of the issues I was having with the story and the plot and the pacing of the first one.
Okay, I will agree on the pacing because it was actually only 15 minutes longer than the original. And it didn't actually feel
and they sorted
like
so much out. Like it just, I was totally fine with moving it to America. And it was kind of neat to do it in the 60s for no reason.
Yeah, although it felt a little strange racially in that sense. Because they then went to this like really fancy hotel in the deep South and like one of the desk girls gave them. And okay, here's the thing. I'm not requesting horrible racism in this children's movie adaptation, but it was like one of the desk girls like gave Octavia Spencer like a dirty look. And that was like the end of it. And it was just really odd to me because it made it feel like it was gonna be a thing. And Octavia Spencer said a handful of things about how like the witches only prey on like the people that can't like support themselves and stuff. And it was like racially tilted and then not fully addressed in an appropriate way.
Because all the service staff was. Yeah.
And so it's the type of thing where it's like, I absolutely appreciate that they were like, no, they're all black. I was like, great. I love that. And there were some black witches too. And I was like, I love it. I love the different twist on that and everything. But it's like, then the fact that despite the fashion, which is like the best part of the 50s and 60s, making it in 1968, but then also not addressing the 1968 of it all is just a little.
It didn't throw me all that much. I noticed it, but I feel more like the children's movie aspect of it. I think
100%. I'm not.
I think the aesthetics were fine, but
I'm not claiming that it needs to be like a like Forrest Gump of children, you know. But it just was a little strange to me that they addressed it enough so that it like pinged my brain, and then they just stopped talking about it. I was like, well, all right, but it's strange.
I don't really understand why it was narrated. I don't know.
I hate it
because we didn't see Chris Rock at all, so I didn't understand.
I hated the narration like so much. I don't know if we've talked about it before. I think we must have, because we've talked about narration before, and you were like, you don't like narration, right? And I was like, I actually,
children.
Well, that's not me, that's Will. So if nobody's heard us talk about it before, my husband hates the narration in the movie Little Children with Kate Winslet and Patrick Wilson. And I actually think it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. And I generally like narration and voiceover stuff in movies. But this, for whatever reason, it threw me so hard every time he started talking. And I don't know if it was because it's Chris Rock and he's just such an easily recognizable voice, or if it was just the narration itself. But I was like, this is doing nothing for me.
Well, okay. But on that note, even though I don't understand why it was narrated, he does have
a presence.
Calming, kind of like it's not quite soothing, but it's like it's very familiar. It's very kind of like, okay, like I can see how it might work.
Yeah.
I thought the kid was very good.
He was pretty good.
The way they structured the parents dying and like.
Sure. It was a lot more thoughtful than the old one.
Way more thoughtful.
Because it was in the old one, it was like they just were dead all of a sudden, but like her shawl survived and like perfectly, and the grandmother had it again.
When him being in the accident and like I liked a lot of the direction, to be honest. And I did want to point that out in the 1990 version as well. I did appreciate a lot of the direction, not all of it, but a lot of it. I loved how much they did in both versions with angles and like swooping and stuff. I think it really, both versions really did sort of capture the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids element.
I was going to say it helps the scale, this like the difference in scale from when he's like a boy to when he's a mouse.
And the effects in this one, I would say, are good. They're
pretty good, yeah.
And they're consistent.
That's the thing, is I'm not embarrassed by them.
Yeah, they were
across the board.
It just, the whole thing had sort of an artificial dreamy quality that I really like. Octavia Spencer doing so much heavy lifting. I mean, I think she alone held the movie together with some help from Stanley Tucci, but
yes. Here's the thing. I was like trying to think of another Stanley Tucci movie I could watch last night after I watched this to take the taste of him getting bit in the balls by a demon mouse out of my head. I mean,
he said so many words. I know. On my list.
Oh God, that's an insight I didn't necessarily need. No, I love Stanley Tucci so much, and I think he can be so good. And it's not that I think he was bad here, but I think for all three of them, for Anne Hathaway, Octavia Spencer, and Stanley Tucci, I just feel like this movie was a waste of their talents.
It was a paycheck roll through and through.
100% it's a paycheck roll, but like the fact that you said people are like praising the performance of Anne Hathaway, and I'm just like, bitch, where?
Well, I mean, it was go for broke. She was...
Yeah, but that's not always... That doesn't equate to good acting.
Sure, because there was a part of me where at first I was like, okay, she's on the same level as Keira Knightley in
That's what I was thinking at first.
But then ultimately, I think Keira actually was playing a character again, where Anne
was just shouting.
Sometimes she was good, but far too often she was just sort of just.
Because I totally agree with you. When we saw the Nutcracker, we both agreed that it was mostly terrible.
Well, we saw the trailers, and Keira Knightley was doing this horrible voice in the trailers. I was like, I do not understand how two separate directors let her do this.
Yeah.
But then when you see the movie, you're like, this is such a bold acting choice.
It makes sense, and you're like, this is why Keira Knightley is consistently working. That's the thing, is there are so many roles for me with Anne Hathaway where I'm like, how do you keep getting work? Like I love you so much, but like, how did this last thing not ruin you?
She needed to be in Cats.
Oh my God. Actually, that might have helped. Cats.
She might have been good in
For
Cats.
me. She would have probably been great in Cats. So
that
good
is
in
so
Cats.
her. No, I just...
like, if they hadn't been able to get Taylor Swift, that would have been Anne Hathaway.
I can't get over the fact that Tom Hooper made her sing I Dream a Dream, I Dreamed a Dream, one of the most bombastic songs in
iconic, bombastic,
history.
So emotional and like tense.
One take sitting down. That
poor
is
diaphragm.
because I watch like those YouTube videos, like the high note challenge and stuff, and they always end up having to stand up and stuff. And so for me, it's like that's kind of why I'm fine with her having the Oscar for that.
Sure.
But I mean, it should have been Ocean's 8, but she was so good in that.
Oh, good.
What was her name? Daphne Vega or something?
Daphne Kruger.
Or
Kluger, maybe. Okay, this is going off on a tangent about Anne Hathaway, but for me, she should have won the Oscar for her supporting role in Brokeback Mountain because she is impeccable in that movie in a way that and to be frank, Anna Faris from Brokeback Mountain too. It's unreal, the people who didn't win Oscars for that movie. Sorry.
Well, but also to Anne Hathaway's credit, it's like she did a similar role in Alice in Wonderland, but she nailed that.
Yes, she did a very Emily Blunt in Huntsman Winter's War thing.
Yeah, where
Alice
it was
in Wonderland.
It was,
but there's something interesting in that performance,
and there was a subtlety. Yeah, there was no
subtlety.
But there were no layers. And again, that is sort of my issue, and maybe it's the Roald Dahl of it all. But that is sort of my issue. Is on a fundamental level, I don't understand this story. I don't understand why the witches hate children. I don't understand what they're actually trying to accomplish because in both versions, but I think it was a little bit more clear in the remake, the Grand High Witch recognizes Grandma.
Yeah.
And once she realizes who she is, it's like this is the first time she's ever put two and two together that kids turn into adults.
Sure.
So she should then also hate adults? I don't know. I couldn't... I can't fathom what this story is actually about.
I totally agree, because then you also get to a point where we were talking about it in the first one where we were like, well, what's the deal? Are they eating the children?
Because if they want to eat the children, that makes perfect sense to me.
Sure. But then the issue becomes, it becomes very like a vampire thing where it's like, we're going to just drain the world of its blood. And it's like, okay, but you need some people to keep making people or else you will run out of food. And it's like, you can't kill all the children because then there's no children to have more children. And you really have to you have to do like a farm to table approach to this. Like, it's really specific.
But again, they're not eating them. And they also, the painting wasn't in this, which I guess it's not in the book, which is just somehow even more yikes for the 90s version. Because it was like somebody created that for that.
So here's my thing about Roald Dahl. I've read a handful of his books, like the most popular ones. The issue for me is that it seems that no one can actually get an adaptation of his work to what he first intended. But it's the type of thing where I actually really, really, really like Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, but he apparently hated it. But I like that darkness that he brings to it, that really like sinister, almost sociopathic darkness. And that's something that I think Angelica Houston brought to her Grand High Witch. And there's no sociopathy like in Anne Hathaway. It's just screaming. Like there's no there to make it actually scary.
It reminds me of a favorite of ours, of Sin City, where it's like the point of adapting one of these books into a movie is not necessarily to tell the story. It's the manner in which Roald Dahl tells stories.
Sure.
It's the entire delivery of it. And like if someone had just adapted Sin City like as a narrative, that could have been a terrible movie without the visual, the aesthetics, the camp, the style, the noir, like.
Well, and it's also the type of thing where like the breaking up of the storylines into, non-linear things. I mean, it's the type of thing where I don't feel you can tell a story like that.
But it's also the Roald Dahl drawings are part of it, and that's difficult to capture in a straight up narrative. I'm going to bring up that Pop Culture Happy Hour episode about the boys in the band, where they talk about like a play is a specific art form.
Yeah,
it works differently than a movie, and sometimes the two sometimes you can jump from one to the other, but sometimes it doesn't translate.
Well, I think the problem is that you have to translate it. You can't just... It's the problem we have with Rob Marshall. You can't just take a stage show and put it in a movie. You have to adapt it some way. Like his good thing, Chicago, you have to make it so it's all in Renee Zellweger's head, you know? But
also Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby is a strange story.
Yeah.
Family Guy has taught us anything. It's that it's a bad story. The point of The Great Gatsby and the point of Fitzgerald is the words. When you remove the words from the equation, you're gonna have at best mixed results.
But that, I think, is why specifically Baz Luhrmann was the correct person to adapt that, because he can make the words visual. And that's a very specific, like, to go to another Baz Luhrmann thing entirely, which now this episode is just about adaptations. Romeo and Juliet is a terrible story. It's awful. It's sad. It's kind of boring. It's just awful. But his Romeo and Juliet is so interesting because, first of all, it's set relatively modern day. And it also, he again is able to make the beautiful words visual in a way that, like, even though they were speaking the Shakespearean English, you can also see it happening. And that's, I think, the thing, like you said, with The Great Gatsby. And I think the issue arises because Roald Dahl is a children's author. And while that is a lovely thing to aspire to, and there should be more children's authors who are doing really weird and interesting things like Roald Dahl, it is difficult to stretch a story like this and make a feature-length movie that makes any sense at all.
On that point, with this movie, in my opinion, this version tells the more successful story about a boy and his grandmother and the overcoming the adversity, overcoming evil. I think the choices made in this one tell a more successful story. However, I think Angelica Houston was a better or more successful Grand High Witch. And I think the grotesquerie of the physical practical effects in the original served the goal of scaring children better, although this had its fair share.
Okay, their mouths really
I really
appreciated
that. I really appreciated that.
I will tell you, the thing that I actually was the most unsettling to me was the mouse's eyebrows.
I didn't note.
I hated it. They were such thick human eyebrows.
I didn't note it.
On a mouse, and I was like, that is horrible.
Well, and also, I appreciate the ending. I haven't decided whether or not I like it. I appreciate it in that it's interesting.
It is interesting.
It's rare in a children's movie that you don't have a Glinda come in and fix everything.
I was going to say, it felt a little grim to me, but
in a
because you have to imagine now, like, so, okay, how old is Octavia Spencer at the end? Because the boy, he doesn't have a name in this one, but for the sake of ease, I'll call him Luke again.
Well, his name is like Hero. It's weird.
Yeah, well, because he's the hero. Yeah. But because he has aged from like a 10-year-old boy into Chris Rock, who has to be 50. So, like, how old is Octavia Spencer?
I mean, she could push 100.
I mean,
she struck me as a younger, I mean, in the 60s and stuff, she struck me as a younger grandmother.
That's fair. I also do love that they didn't just like give her magic diabetes out of nowhere, that she was actually getting sick from the witch. I preferred that. Anne Hathaway kept pointing at her, and that's when she would start coughing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Because I think the witch with the snake at the beginning did it to her first, and then Anne Hathaway was like, I know you, and every time she pointed,
and the flashback was good. That first reveal.
The chicken! Oh my God! That is horrible. Horrible.
And that
this is like weird body horror in these movies.
That first reveal of Anne Hathaway kind of masked or obscured with the steam, and she had the smile, but you couldn't quite, because she was good sometimes, I think.
Sometimes. Well, it's like, she's Anne Hathaway. She's, I think, good by default, but I think someone was giving her bad advice.
The thing that killed me, and it will probably be surprising to you that this annoyed me, but the big witch scene in the ballroom, it was too much. Why was she flying?
Yeah, why was she flying?
Where did flying factor in?
I agree.
Anyway, and
that does not surprise me at all. I had a problem with the flying too. I was like, she's just like gliding back and forth all over. And
the only time I actually kind of liked it is when she went to look into the vent and she levitated.
And then, yeah.
That I liked. And the arms, that was good. That was
really
good.
Creepy.
I liked the arms.
Yeah, really creepy.
The nose thing, it was so weird they set that up and it only paid off once.
Yeah, and it also was like 8 times their normal, or 8 inches in diameter, and I was like, that's like... I was like, I don't think so.
I wish it had just gotten bigger, like
just like a bigger nose.
Like Angelica Houston's.
Okay, yeah.
Those effects really, it just sort of took me out of it. I was like, why are we doing any of this?
It's the type of thing where I wish that they had just... I mean, it's not Robert Zemeckis' style. He's the one that did the Polar Express, right?
I was going to ask you that. So
I was going to say, it's not his style or his like jam to do that, but I kind of wish they had just used more sophisticated practical effects, at least for some of it, because I think it would have paid off. I mean, Muppets are 30 years more advanced. I think we could have had puppet mice that would have
I understand what you're saying, but that would have been a different movie because combining... If we at any point had a puppet and then going back to the CGI,
that's fair.
It would have been too jarring of a transition.
Fair. I don't know. Those mouse eyebrows really.
I liked they needed to be more anthropomorphic, like with breasts and
just a little Kristin Chenoweth mouse with breasts.
I was gonna say that I liked the incorporation of Daisy / Mary because that confused me in the first one when they even run into William and Mary and the mice are just like,
yeah.
And then we never see them again. I was like, okay. But the movie showed its hand, for me at least, with Kristin Chenoweth being Daisy, Mary, because I was like, what's going to happen when they turn these kids back? Because it would be bizarre to cast a child. And
yes. Okay. So in that sense, yes, I'm glad that they stayed
mice.
Okay.
I also wondered if maybe it was like dog years or something. Like when they brought Mary back, she was going to be like
Kristin
a 50-year-old Broadway diva.
Amazing. No, that is the thing that's interesting because it struck me too. I was like, how on earth is this going to like work out? That is Kristin Chenoweth's voice. But then
imagine dubbing that voice into a child.
Oh my God. What also annoyed me is that Bruno's parents didn't keep him. That's like...
I kind of liked that.
Oh, you did? I don't know. I thought it showed like a nice arc in the old one that they were like, oh, we can make this work. And then I assumed that they like fixed Bruno in the old one too. They like found him.
Well, because he says like to the Night Witch, he says...
Don't forget Bruno. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I kind of loved the three of them being like happy, pleased as punch on their little roller coaster. And I was like, you know what?
But the other thing is it went to some like surprisingly different dark places because then he was talking with Octavia Spencer with his grandma about like how long do mice live, and she was like 3 years, but you're like a mouse person, so maybe like 3 times that much. And I was like, so 9 years, and then he's gonna die.
Which goes, so then there you go. He was aging in mice human years. So it wasn't 50 years. It was like 9.
I guess.
And in that regard, Octavia's like 65 or 70.
Sure.
And the math, it's weird, but it holds
It's
holds
so
up.
Grim.
Actually, I liked Hades, the cat. Yeah. And I was a little bit bummed that they didn't use him more.
Yeah.
Having said that, if they used him more, I probably would have said it was too much and they should have used him less.
What I want to say about Hades, and I'm looking directly at the creators of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, is that it worked and you're cowards.
I loved
it was great. It was really great.
He was a good cat. He was a good boy.
It was also another really grim moment if you really think about it, because he's the one who kills Anne Hathaway, and it's just like
the one toe was interesting.
It was weird.
I liked it
was interesting, but it was really
hands
weird.
and
it was really weird to look at. What I did actually like was there was a sound effect at the beginning when they were all walking into the hotel, and it was like squelching almost because they don't have toes. It was bizarre.
I kind of loved it, to be honest. I mean,
the more we talk about it, actually, the more I come around on it. But I straight up was not having a good time last night.
No, I was like 10 minutes and 15 minutes in, and I was like, this is great. I don't know what people are. I mean, it's not going to be. Well, also, you have to consider this year, like what we've had this year.
That's true. I'm not going to. Okay. That's fair. If this had come out last year, I would have been laughing. Like, you must be joking. But you're right. This year with like the like total lack of content, and it just was like, it was nice to watch a new thing. So that's fair.
I honestly don't know what it would be like to be a kid and watch either of these.
I just think too much. Like there are things from the original one that's like to this day still traumatize me. Like I think about her taking her face off and I'm like, oh God.
I loved her gloves. The first scene that we see Anne Hathaway alone, and she has the turban, and they're like human skin, but they're gloves, and it was like that was good. Some of it was really good. Actually, do you want to know the perfect metaphor for this movie? The perfect metaphor for this movie is at the very end when grandmother is trying to gather up the potions, and Anne Hathaway comes in the hotel room and grandma doesn't hear her, and we can just see her creeping up in the glass. There was like a fractured glass sculpture in the headboard, and we can just see her creeping up, and it actually was genuinely scary.
Well, I definitely... Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
It was actually genuinely scary, and then Robert Zemeckis was like, ah! And it was like, had they just let her be scary, be creepy, like she didn't need to shatter the headboard, she didn't need to like, you know what I mean? It just like, that is sort of the movie. Because I was going to say, leading up to that, because as she's creeping in, she's like taking off her shoes very gingerly and quietly. And I was like, this is, it was like actually a little scary. And then you're right, she just totally ruins it. It's like, you just tipped off everybody that you're harassing, but just her face, old lady. Like in the kaleidoscope, it was, so like I said, I kind of loved it. I had very low expectations, and I don't think I hated it, but I don't think I'll ever watch it again. That's fair.
You know, where it's like, it wasted an hour and 45 minutes of my life, which in the year 2020, you know, in late October is welcome, but that's pretty much it.
So, okay, I feel pretty good about that.
All right, well, you can watch the original Witches on Netflix for the time being. You can watch the new Witches on HBO Max, and then you can follow us on Twitter @SoI'mWatching or Instagram @SoI'mWatchingThisShow. You can also subscribe over here on YouTube because we need subscribers, and you can rate and review and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to follow along with our website, it's soimwatching.com. And that's pretty much it. Bye.